but welcome
Well, you tell
everybody.
me when I can share the screen with the
Okay.
slide.
Well, I think what we're hoping to do is to have an opportunity to sort of, as we've been talking about this Park Street reuse and reconfiguration. It's as we get closer and closer to this actually happening. We want to make sure that everybody is aware of what the current plan is, and just kind of get feedback as to what use that we're looking at doing, and then how other businesses are going to be able to activate these spaces. So we're really excited that we have a great partner in the City of Alameda as far as wanting to make this move through the process that would normally take quite a while, that they are really on board to make sure that this is happening quickly. And we're hoping that, their plan was that it would be able to be sometime this month. So it's exciting. So Ron, I think if you could share that there's like the 3 panel photos of what's, oh, go ahead. The screen, let's do this. Perfect. There.
So you want me just to advance?
Yeah, why don't you, yes.
So, the question came, in response to the emergency, how can we help the business communities? I'm sure people have seen other cities are looking at their streets and changing them to streeteries or use. So we sent a letter to the city, and surprisingly, especially Andrew Thomas with the planning department, came back pretty quickly. So the idea of this phase 1 is limited to Park Street from Santa Clara to Encinal. And basically, if we can get this going, make it happen, work with it for a few weeks, month, address whatever issues come up, then we could look at expanding. If there's issues that are detrimental, then we'd have to figure out how to fix those, or if it just doesn't work, obviously we can punt. There is no official end date to this plan. The discussion was we get this in place, we work with it, and maybe we can get all the way through October before we have a real in-depth discussion about where it goes. So Kathy, can you see the screen, or are you just listening?
I can, yep, no, okay. I can see. So go ahead, you go.
So basically 3 parts. Moving the waiting lines to the meter. That's basically so that there's ADA walking access up and down the sidewalks, and people can actually get into the storefronts when they're allowed to go in. Removing the existing parking that's right next to the curb and allow business use in that area. Could be just people waiting for pickup, or if people want to use other things. And then using the 1 travel line for short-term parking, places where people are coming to really do a curbside pickup. They can pull in for 5, 10, maybe as long as 15 minutes and pick things up. So here's Kathy's illustration of people behaving correctly.
Yes. And I think, part of our, one of the things that we want to be mindful of is that, we don't want we don't want your line to interfere with somebody else's doorway. Mm-hmm. And so this way it keeps that, that pathway clear so that, people can navigate back and forth easily, especially people with any disabilities. It provides that clear access path down Park Street.
Any questions so far or on this specifically?
I worry a little bit about less as a business owner and more as a resident. What's the traffic plan, or what's the anticipated? I don't know how long this goes on for, but sometimes it's pretty hard to get off of Park Street, and even in today's times, I was stuck on there for a while yesterday. So what's the plan as it relates to traffic?
So,
So currently, the city has conducted a, kind of a traffic assessment, and before COVID, it was still, there was plenty of room to go, what they're referring to as a road diet on Park Street. And so what we are anticipating is that, a lot of this traffic will move to like other parts of town, so Park Street won't become just a busy thoroughfare, that it is, that people will look at adjusting the traffic, their driving patterns.
and right now the city is not planning on changing the no left turn times. You still could not make no left turns off of or onto Park at the 3 or 4 major intersections from, I guess it's only 2, but anyway, from 3:30 to 6. But other times they would still allow it, and they would watch to see if they needed to make it the no left turns longer.
Thanks, guys.
Oops, wrong button. So this is a picture of looking down Santa Clara, the south, at the Santa Clara intersection. And it shows, so the plan is to, at this point, is just to use paint to make these changes. There's not going to be bollards or K-rails. And starting from the left side over at the La Penca Azul, there's a 2-foot buffer that would get painted between the existing parking lane and the first travel lane. And that would denote, not crossing at all. The hope could be is that maybe, for example, our shop, Daisy's, is that we could get a planter that we could roll and put in that 2-foot buffer area that would make it even more of a separation. And then in that lane there would be parking, and the 2 center lanes continue traffic, and they're 11-foot lanes, which the city says are, the standard for truck traffic and should be able to maintain traffic flow. I will say traffic has gotten a bit more in the last week and a half, 10 days. A month ago when this started, traffic was very light on Park Street. And we've had sewer work in our blocks, these 2 blocks actually, the last few weeks. And every once in a while they have to shut it down to 1 lane. And it doesn't get backed up significantly. But I imagine around commute times, which seem to be reappearing, that could become an issue.
I have a question for us. I don't know if anybody would have any feedback on this, but for our storefront, it's right in front of us is the 3-stream trash cans. It's a bus stop. So we're kind of in an interesting place because there's, we have restaurants to what would be our left side if you're facing the street. And so they're all restaurants except for the skate shop. And then on the right side, we don't have any open stores currently. So there's us, and then the first parking lot is kind of, it's right in front of our school, and then there's Pauline's, and then there was Land V, who I think are gone. So so the next restaurant isn't until Lola's, I think, on our right side. So just kind of having an idea of what might happen to those parking spaces, because there are restaurants that are right in front of the bus stop. They don't have parking.
Yeah, and that's our poor friends at Town Tavern.
Yeah, on either side.
Yeah, so Kathy and the city are going to be meeting with them Monday afternoon to try to figure something out.
Yeah.
And I certainly wouldn't want to speak. Actually, Stan, are you on the call?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi. So
Hi.
certainly don't want to speak for you, but we're trying to figure out something so that he can get outside seating happening, and of course the bus stop itself can't get blocked. But yeah, if there's a fair amount of area, so figuring that out, and of course, the city is pretty strong in their wanting to make sure that there's plenty of ADA passable sidewalk. So that's going to make it hard for Stan, but the minds are going to meet on Monday.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. So
Hello, hi. I'm also worried about the ADA travel space and also our outdoor seating at the same time, because I believe you're supposed to have at least 30 inches or so, almost, to have ADA travel distance as a pathway. And we also have our 8 foot from our building as outdoor seating, and it actually overlaps by a lot. So
Right.
I guess that's a talk we're gonna have on Monday, but other than that, that's an issue
Yeah.
I have to think about.
And to be frank, this plan sounds great, but with COVID distancing, right, with
Correct.
social distancing, that creates an even harder, so if you have a table and I don't know that these are the rules, but if they're saying you've got to be 3 feet apart, that's one thing. But if that table has to be 6 feet apart from everybody, then a parking space is only 6 feet wide by 8 or 9 feet. So, it doesn't create a whole ton of space, but hopefully we can figure things out to make it happen.
They're not doing this on Santa Clara, right? It's only Park Street.
Correct. First phase 1 is Park Street. And if things work and we can figure things out, although that corner, as you might remember, there's a bus stop on the Santa Clara.
Yeah.
Too.
Right.
So it's like a double whammy there.
When
They love me.
I can find out later, but if I could jump into that meeting, I'd be curious to see, because we have that parking space in the front.
Right. So so if you're thinking about doing a parklet or things, we'd love to get that, even if it's just, we're thinking about it, so that we can put you on the list and we can start making sure you get all the information and we can work this together.
I filled out the survey, the online survey. So.
Oh, great.
Okay, great. Thank you.
As Kathy said, for the city, they're moving fast. For an entrepreneur, it's a little different.
Yes.
So, and this just clarifies the parking areas could get used. This is a photograph of a picture that Kate Pryor did a little parklet right out in front of Tucker's and Daisy's a few years back. And this was sort of as simple as it gets, right? Some plywood decking on top of pallets, and it's weighed down by the planters. So it wasn't moving anywhere, and people could sit there for whatever and enjoy an ice cream or wait to do things. So the parking space, it's really to make the sidewalk bigger, but we have to be worried about the curb step down, right? The city's worried that, it still has to be ADA compliant. That doesn't mean every single space has to have a ramp down or something, but if there's an area that a whole bunch of tables are out, maybe one ramp could service 3 or 4 parking spaces. Or people could do it where they could put pallets in and make it even with the sidewalk, and then that's clear. They even suggested, potentially could put signage out there. So A-frame signs during this time won't be able to be right next to your building because they want that clear for walking. So they could move out to that area. And this is I won't say clip art, but sort of a standard drawing of what parklets could be, just to get a sense of if we were in the future or some other areas in the country. Oakland actually has one up in the Laurel District that's made of cement and wood. That's pretty cool, but they're much tighter seating arrangements, but it's just to give a bubble of a brain to say, hey, this is something that as we move forward, maybe we could talk about, or you could take this idea, make it COVID-19 compliant, and move forward. So, so there's already been a few questions. Any more questions about in general, how we're hoping this to happen?
I have a question, Ron.
Go, Rich.
Yeah, so is there going to be some type of written application for every single business that wants to have this type of easement or change, or is it just going to be generally allowed?
So that's a darn good question, and I'll have more answers after 2 o'clock today, although my guess is they'll be getting back to us. So the original concept was that the downtown could apply for an umbrella use permit, and we would be given the rules by the city, and then Kristen and Barbara say, I want a parklet. We give them the rules. They get all the paperwork together, give it to us, and we tell the city, yep, it matches your rules, it's in, we're good to go. Because we've said the downtown is taking on the responsibility to make it happen.
Okay, so with that, I mean, this...
But in the draft rules, they put in that every business still has to do an application. So now that's in question, and that's what we're asking. So we were hoping, trying to get that we could make it an extremely quick process. This could be the overlay, in essence, that says these are the rules. If you comply with it, do it, and then our businesses would be acting on good faith as we would, and it wouldn't have to go back through city departments. It might still have to go back through the city for every single business. Go ahead, Rich.
To tag on to that. So I remember Andrew Thomas was saying he was trying to allow this throughout the entire city. And it wouldn't be just, well, the parking arrangement that we're talking about is just from Santa Clara to Encinal. However, as we know, our district and other districts are bigger than that. What's going to happen with the businesses that are outside of the Santa Clara Encinal portion of our district? Can they apply?
The street diet wouldn't happen, but we should be able to do Parklet outside of.
On the sidewalk.
Yeah. And then I think there's also space that we're looking at on Alameda Avenue. And another area that we had talked about was in Lot C, having half of that area, removing the parking from that area so that, there could be outdoor seating, possibly even some outdoor fitness classes, things like that.
My door? Oh, the back door? Is it possible to get a chair from your place? I'm locked out.
Sorry.
Oh, I'm the.
What was that question?
Yeah. Is it hard? No, you go in my door.
I think he's giving directions.
Door.
So case in point, Spinning Bones down at the end, the southern end of our district, they're near San Jose. They've approached me to talk about leasing the parking lot at the old Big O site. We have seating there. And of course, wouldn't impede any sidewalk, and they're not using the street. I don't think that the street is going to go all the way. The street diet, as we call it, is going to go all the ways down there. So they want to go. They want to go over and use that as their park, their outdoor seating area. And the landlords have agreed. The owners have agreed to it. So I guess now it's for them to go to the city and say, how's that going to work with the city?
Yeah.
Right. And I would suggest trying to loop Kathy and Eric Fonstein in on that, because the city is supposed to be allowing that with your own parking. So, assuming that there's a brief lease, that should be pretty quick to be able to, right. It should be pretty quick for them to approve it. So Eric from Economic Development isn't necessarily the answer person, but he's the one that's taking our questions and getting them to city staff and vice versa to try to get things rolling.
Yeah, he's a great air traffic control.
So the list of the rules for the parklets are about 3 pages long. So instead of trying to put them in this slide presentation. We can email them to you, and we're still working with the city to try to eliminate or minimize what individual businesses would have to do if we're granted the umbrella permit. And my personal opinion is, if every single business has to come in with their own application, then why is the city doing, or why is the district doing an umbrella permit? So that's the conversation I hope to have with the city this afternoon, and try to figure out, what do they really mean? Do they just mean that they need a checkoff sheet from each business that and signature that they're willing to comply? That's easy, but an actual application, that to me just raises red flags for anybody working with bureaucratic organizations.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. Oh, go ahead.
No, so we're attempting to get this master agreement available. And of course, members are going to have to agree to operate them according to the rules, which are pretty common sense rules, right? Keep it clean. You know, it is, if you do a parklet where you have a fixed seating out there that you're not bringing in outside of business hours, the rule is that the public gets to use it. That doesn't mean I don't believe that we couldn't cover things, but that's just some of the standard rules for parklets. And you know, this is my editorial, but as this happens and we start seeing what is possible, hopefully it creates a conversation about how might we want the streetscape to be after this emergency. Would it be good to incorporate some of these in their downtown for long-term thinking? So not temporary ones, but permanent ones. Mm-hmm. And as Kathy mentioned, I'll just get to phase 1A, figuring out Alameda Avenue and what we could use there. That has a lot of space. We could put a number of tables out there, and just thinking, frankly, all the way from the Taqueria to Park Street, block that off, put tables there for a streetery. People can get their to-go food. One person that was in the walk and talk about this even said she would walk a block and a half to be able to go and sit down separated from some people and still be able to enjoy the downtown. I think that person might be on the outside of the limits, but you know, if somebody could sit there and enjoy it, that would be great. If we could get used, and we can get people coming back on the street. And of course, we're a couple days away from summer officially. So interest in this.
Sorry, can I just confirm this parklet type thing? It's only from Santa Clara to Encinal. Is that right?
So parklets we can talk about in other areas of the district. The street diet, the changing the traffic lanes, is only from Santa Clara to Encinal. So in front of your space, Kelly, we can certainly talk to, if you're interested in it, we'll go to the city and say, hey, we'd like to put a parklet there. We'd make sure you have the rules, talk about what it could look like. And we can use parklets in other parts of the district.
Very cool. What happens when you go up Park Street? Will the inside lane, as you're going up, coming towards Santa Clara, will that be a forced right? How will that merge to not create anxiety traffic at that point?
Good question.
Well, it's currently, and it will remain a bus stop on in front of Town Tavern, and so that piece will, will kind of make that natural progression. Right.
But on the other side of the street, so if you're going from up Park Street, as you approach Santa Clara and you're 2 lanes, and you're going to be going into 1 lane, is that?
So as soon as you cross the intersection, it'll still be 2 lanes because buses still have to pull into that bus stop. It'll be right after the bus stop that it'll narrow down to 1 lane.
Okay, so a big merge thing is gonna.
Right. Which happens when buses are there.
Works right, except for buses at Santa Clara to get them. I don't know.
Interesting, yeah. We certainly can talk to the city, and there would be signage back, probably just after Lincoln, the big ugly signs that say traffic conditions changed ahead or single lane ahead would be up there flashing to tell people to hopefully slow down and to look for one lane road ahead. Other questions? Actually, Kelly, as I think about you, I don't know the real story behind Times Way. And I guess Fink Auto would have a problem if we closed that off and made that an open air area. But other than them, I'm not sure that there's much real usage. You can come through the parking lot, but I'm just thinking other areas where we might be able to. Someone suggested Webb, right by Alameda Bicycle as another area that we could put tables out for more citizens to use the streetscape.
Is there also a way just where we are, especially in the morning and such, big trucks go by that are huge? I mean, I've had my side mirror taken off a couple times, parked on there by trucks just going blazing down there. Is there a way to divert huge trucks that are, if we're going to be encouraging more pedestrians to be coming here, to divert them in a different way? It's really dangerous. Some of them, just throwing it out.
Yeah, so I don't know the answer to that question. I don't disagree. And matter of fact, part of this discussion is trying to work with, really it's us, but working to make sure that truck deliveries start happening early in the morning. Currently, restaurants get deliveries, and you probably even see this, but some of the restaurants up by us, the trucks come in at like 2-3 o'clock in the morning. They have keys or codes that they can get in and make the deliveries, so they're gone. But still, we have businesses like Starbucks that seem to like to get Friday afternoon deliveries, and trying to get them to park somewhere where it doesn't create a traffic jam is going to be interesting.
Oh, I had a comment to that. We have US Foods deliver for us, and a lot of our purveyors are short on drivers. So they're trying to cover multiple areas, and sometimes they just can't get to our area in time. So we had pickup time set early in the morning, but sometimes it gets to us at 2-3 o'clock in the afternoon because there are just not enough drivers. So they can't stick to their usual delivery schedules that they had. Certain companies do the AM drop-offs, like our bread companies, bakeries and whatnot, but the larger purveyors are having really a hard time sticking to their normal drop-off schedules right now. That's why you're probably seeing these big trucks. Our liquor vendors, our food purveyors, they're all kind of behind right now. So it's really tough because Alameda doesn't have wide streets on any other parallel street to Park Street to get those big trucks in here. So yeah,
right.
I'm sorry, I'm one of those guys getting those deliveries.
No, and even our friends at UPS, they're having a heck of a time. Where, luckily we live right by our shop, above our shop. But it's not uncommon that UPS is knocking on our door at 6-7 o'clock these days, which they were always we could count on them like clockwork between 10 and noon. So yeah, they're having problems. Doesn't look like coffee.
For me?
Yeah, you stand.
No,
Cocktails already?
No. You don't see it, but I have my home gym behind me right now. I'm actually working out and on this call at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think part of it too is, it's a work in progress. We're going to start out with here's what we think is going to work. Here's what we're planning. And then, real life may cause us to pivot, which is apparently the word of the year. So, but I think it's just kind of as we're going through, we're we're going to figure it out, and we want to make sure that everybody is informed along the way, and that if there are any roadblocks or hiccups or things that are coming up, to make sure that you can let us know, so that we can address the issues sooner rather than later. So.
And I would ask everybody to assume good intentions. That certainly seems to be what's happening. So if we do get a hiccup and the city suddenly comes up with some bizarre rule, we're going to try to go back at them as quickly as possible to say, let's make this work for us. But if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But I'm hopeful that we'll make this happen, and literally those that have expressed interest, we can get back to, I hope by middle to end of next week, and say, okay, here are the plans, here is what we need to do. For example, one thing is insurance, right? Everybody's worried about, getting sued, as the city is as well. So I was able to go to our insurance company yesterday and say, can we get a certificate of insurance adding the Downtown Association and the city on as additional insured for our basic business insurance we have? And I got that certificate of insurance this morning by email. So it was fast, no extra charge, boom. So I hope that's how it goes forward with everyone else.
And that's also something I think that we can also, like as we are developing this, to give that checklist so that people can have, this is what you're going to ask for from your insurance company. And just to make it as easy and turnkey as possible. That's our hope.
Are we going back to the parking situation? Are they not going to have any type of fixed barricade between the previous parking spots in the first lane of the pulling over? Because I say that because coming over from the middle lane to your pickup area is just like shoreline. Half the time I'm riding my bike down, a car pulls in and the front nose of the car gets right into the bike lane. So is that going to happen to the parking spots where the driver pulling into the 15-minute loading zone is going to nose into the actual parking spots where pedestrians or anyone eating, it's going to be in that area? So as a safety precaution per se.
So short answer, correct. There won't be any, the city's not going to put any K-rails or barriers up. It's going to be that 24 inches of white hatched paint on the ground. But that's where I said, for us, for example, we want to put out planters on rollers. Our friends down at Dragon Rouge have some. They're like 18 inches wide by 2 feet long, and they're on pretty heavy duty casters. And so when I saw that, I took a picture of it, and so it would be there. Roll it out, put it there. So it might get bumped. But yeah, that definitely is an issue. Just like right now, if somebody pulls in where it's a car. So there's not at this point any look at putting any barriers there. The one thing that I have thought of is those hard rubber, I don't know what exactly they're called, but they're only like 6, maybe 8 inches tall, that you see in some areas where they can bang those into the asphalt. And maybe that is something, if anybody, so they're kind of like a long brick, except they're made out of hard rubber. That might be something that could go down easy and quick. The city engineer was saying, hopefully the paint would be enough that would deter people. And then if people, especially if you do a parklet, normally you put something on the backside of the parklet. But yeah, if I'm just putting out tables for my restaurant, you got a table and 2 chairs there. You know, you don't want, and this is derogatory, you don't want an Uber driver whizzing into the spot and smacking your customers while they're enjoying their drinks. So we'll definitely make sure that we talk about that with the city too as time goes on. You know, I think definitely the city wants to know if people are interested in the parklets, how many they should start planning for, and what their process will need to be. And if there's just seating areas where people want to put out tables and chairs, you know, how we can figure out that. And, you know, we as the Downtown Association are certainly trying to make sure we help people out and we don't suddenly say, oh, great, Stan, you want to put 3 tables and chairs out in front of your space? Great, that's $10,000. Let's do it. You know, that would just, that wouldn't even prick the balloon, right? That would just send you down the sink. You know, it's how can we make this safe, inviting, and we do this for a few months as we hopefully start reopening, and keep improving it. You know, literally, if we have to improve it every week, every month, to make it better, great. And that's why this is called phase 1. Trying to get it working quickly, see how we can do it, and then as in the beginning of the slide, if this works for a month, great. And another block says, hey, we really want to be part of it, we'll go to the city and say, okay, how can we expand it? So are there other subjects people want to talk about if we've finished the what ifs on the Park Street reuse?
Hi, everybody. I'm Brad. I'm the owner of Curated on Park Street, 1523, the old Lee's Auto Supply, next door to Kelly. Kelly, you still there? She leave? Can you hear me?
We hear you, and she's still there.
Okay. Yeah, my first Zoom here, so appreciate it. That was very informative and not too long-winded. Appreciate the thought and energy that the city's putting into everything. I'm a furniture store, so I can't really carry credenzas in and out of that onto that situation. So it's good just to be in the loop of what's going on, and I think anything would help. I know some of the places, I know like Second Home is already kind of softly open. They're having people kind of come in and out with limited numbers. And I missed the first part of this meeting, so I don't know how far away we are towards, or what the city predictor is for how soon somewhat normalcy will return. The scope of this Parklet situation, that's, we're looking at a month of that, 2 months of that, indefinitely. If you said that already, I'm sorry, I missed the first part of the meeting.
Sure. So the temporary parklets would be right now for like a 4-5 month situation, going in until October, when we would revisit things. But if this gets traction and somebody said, hey, I really liked having a temporary one, how can I do a permanent one? We certainly would get into the conversation with you. I will tell you, permanent ones are not cheap. You know, it's one thing taking a couple of pallets and putting on 3/4 inch plywood on top of it, right?
Right.
It's totally different if you're wanting cement and or something stronger and or different. Those aren't going to be. But on the other, so anyway, so and Brad on the supposed normal, so never.
We'll see. I don't.
But the thought is 2 weeks. We're doing things in 2 weeks. The county is doing things in 2 weeks, and Sarah Henry, the public information officer that's been watching things, thinks from what they put out just this past Friday, that in 2 weeks we could possibly get to officially outdoor dining and in-store retail with limited people. So maybe like your staff, and you could allow 2 other people in your store based on the size, would be in about 2 weeks.
Frustrating because I rarely have more than 4 people in my store at a time.
Right. Yeah.
But I appreciate all of the brain. I think will help even in just like out. But if it drags on too long, I'm going to put a pile of 2x4s and a couple hammers in the corner of my store and call it a hardware store, I guess. Necessary. Building materials sold here. Maybe I can open that way. What was my question? And there's a execution date for doing the parklets. How far along? I know we're in the discussion of it. So is there a hard date to execute this idea?
So we're working with the city. Well, the city had hoped that we're going to be able to do this in June, to be able to start this reconfiguration. Okay. So we'll see where we have a meeting, excuse me, this afternoon to talk about some,
Is that Kathy?
Types of
Hi, Kathy.
It's Kathy.
Hi, Kathy. We know each other.
Hi there.
So the one hard date is they're taking this whole idea to the Planning Commission on the 22nd, I believe it is, almost positive it's the 22nd, to get their approval. The City Council already approved the concept, but I'm almost positive the 22nd includes the outdoor use permits, the relaxing of the use permits, so that if we had a parking lot, we could do things out in that parking lot without having to go to the city and get a specific use permit. But it also includes the street change on Park Street and this parklet idea. I think the parklets are not tied with the Planning Commission meeting, but I could be wrong on that. But I know the whole concept is going to the City Planning Commission.
Gotcha. I apologize if you had to repeat this answer. You already discussed it. But when this happens, is there anything I need to do paperwork-wise with the city or anything? Or it sounds like you discussed the insurance situation, so it'd be some kind of blanket insurance for the parklets.
So what we're going to get, kind of those details ironed out. What we're hoping to do is make it as simple and turnkey as possible for all of the businesses.
Right.
And, there may be, as far as applications and things like that, that's all, we'll have the list of rules, and then the actual procedure will be ironed out as we roll this out, so hopefully we'll get a pretty good idea of it. And then, if there's modifications that need to be made and adjustments, we can take care of that.
Okay. So we're talking maybe around June. Some of the approval process is already kind of in work, so maybe around the 22nd, possibly.
Brad, the road's not going to change in front of us. It's only Santa Clara through Encinal. I don't know if you heard that.
Oh no, I didn't know. My bad. So Park Street's just still the way it is then.
In front of us, yeah.
Right.
Thank you, Kelly.
But if you see it and you like it and you want it changed, jump up and down and scream, and we'll see if we can make it change.
Yeah, or you could just email me.
So there is one other thing that the city is considering too, is temporary no parking, pickup only in front of businesses that are not in this area. So if you had, right across the street from you, little diagonal, D20 Games and New York Pizza, right? New York.
Right.
They're asking for 2 spots to be changed from meters to no parking, 10-minute pickup. so people can do curbside easier. So if people want that in front of their stores, if they have a meter in front of their store, send us an email and we'll put you on the list to get that happening.
Okay. So, yeah, that would be nice. But in front of my store is basically the intersection there of
Right.
time cars. So it's a little tricky, but I usually have to load in the alley there at Times Way or in the back. For Trophy.
Yep, but there's other people on the call, so I just wanted them to know too that that's another.
Perfect. Yeah, no, it's all good. Well, thank you guys. I think you guys wrapping it up. Appreciate it. Ron, hope you're doing well. I hope we'll see you in a future in-person Downtown Business Association meeting.
2021's on its way.
Yeah, right. You did a great job. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. I'm going to jump off now.
Thanks.
All right. Bye.
Okay. So, Kathy, you want to
Yeah.
any last words, or do you want to hold up newborn?
I know he's napping now, and you never wake a sleeping baby.
Oh,